Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Balava Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Balava Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bolo Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Paramahamsa Vidavagadatta, Sri Divine Grace, Srila Asa Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Vidavagadatta, Sri Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila Thakur Bhakti Vinod Ki Jai. Shri Guru Parampara Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Go Premananda Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All together, please. Om Jnana Timarandasya Ganandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Prijana Sehitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karana Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapcha Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishavana Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bevacha Padidanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation and commentary, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, text number 26. Correct? Sahi hai. Okay. Please repeat. Śrotra-ādīna indriyāṇi. Śrotrādīnīndriyāṇi anye. Saṁyamāgniṣu juhvati. śabdādīn viṣayān anya. Indriyāgniṣu juhvati. śrotrādīnīndriyāṇi anye. saṁyamāgniṣu juhvati. śabdādīn viṣayān anya. indriyāgniṣu juhvati. śrotrādīnīndriyāṇi anye. saṁyamāgniṣu juhvati. śabdādīn viṣayān anya. indriyāgniṣu juhvati. Okay, go ahead. Juhvati.
śabdādīn viṣayān anya. indriyāgniṣu
no ladies here today, is that correct? Huh? What's happened? So, please repeat. Śrotra-ādīni, such as the hearing process. Indriyāṇi, senses. Anye, others. Saṁyama, of restraint. Agniṣu, in the fires. Juhvati, offer. śabda-ādīn, sound vibration, etc. Viṣayān, objects of sense gratification. Anye, others. Indriya, of the sense organs. Agniṣu, in the fires. Juhvati, they sacrifice. So, translation Srila Prabhupada. Some, the unadulterated brahmacārīs, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control. And others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. Oh, please repeat. Some, the unadulterated brahmacārīs, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of the controlled mind. In the fire of mental control. And others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. Purport Srila Prabhupada. The members of the four divisions of human life, namely brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyasi, are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. Since human life is not meant for our enjoying sense gratification, like the animals, the four orders of human life are so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. The brahmacārīs or students under the care of a bona fide spiritual master control the mind by abstaining from sense gratifications. A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is the basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Hare Nama Nukirtanam, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, and meat eating are general tendencies of human society. But a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principles of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society, because that is the way for a restricted sex life. This restricted, unattached sex life is also a kind of yajna, because the restricted householder sacrifices his general tendency towards sense gratification for higher transcendental life. Makam korochi vachalam pangam laikir yakripatamaham bande Sri Guru Dinatarinam. So, śrotra-ādīni anye saṁyamāgniṣu juhvati śabdādīn viṣayān anye indriya juhvati. Some, the unadulterated brahmacārīs, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses of the mind in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So here Krishna is giving the different yagyas that are in summary form that are throughout the Vedas. See, I think it's on verse 30. Yes. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions. And having tasted the nectar of such results of sacrifices, they advance toward the supreme eternal atmosphere. So by sacrifice, tapasya, control of the senses, one advances. Later on, Krishna will talk about the demoniac, and he'll say, pravrittim cha nivrittim cha. They don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. So material life is pravritti marg. Pravritti marg means animalistic life. The senses dictate, and then the person tries to satisfy the senses. We have different senses, working and knowledge acquiring senses. So we have 5 knowledge indriyas: hearing, touching, seeing, tasting, and smelling. And we have 5 working senses: speaking, the tongue, vocalization, the arms, the belly, the genital, and the legs. We perform, they're called kamendriyas. So in the material life, animal or human, people satisfy the urges of the senses. It's in the Bhagavatam that generally the senses are attracted by nature to the sense objects. That is the way Lord Brahma has constructed the universe. You'll find that in the Bhagavatam. Therefore the sense of sight, sense of hearing, tasting, seeing, smelling, they're always looking for some nice thing to hear, smell, touch, whatever. Similarly, the working senses, especially in India, people love to talk non-stop. So we like to talk and give our opinion. We like to use our arms, cooking, cleaning, whatever, fighting, administrating the body. We like to fill the belly. We like to have sex life, genital. We like to go for a walk, so on and so forth. So these are natural propensities of the senses. The senses are not just sitting idly in the body. The body is a bundle of these senses. And then within the mind, all these things are going into the mind and intelligence. So Bhakti Vinod has explained that we have griha also, geho, deho, manasa. So we have our material paraphernalia, and we have our body, which is that bundle of senses. We have our mind, where all this information is processed by intelligence. And within that we have the soul, and of course super soul. But in the material world we're just looking at the senses, we're not looking at the super soul. The yogi is looking at the super soul, or the Supreme Lord, Shan Sundar, within the heart. So that is nivritti marg. The asura is pravritti marg. He just wants to enjoy his material paraphernalia, his material senses, whether they're knowledge or working senses. He wants to have fantasies within the mind, maybe sometimes taking intoxication, daru, whatever. In Kali Yuga, everyone is dissatisfied, especially, so they take something to satisfy the mind. The intelligence, he likes to opinionate and speculate, so on and so forth. So this is pravritti marg, and that is what the animals do, right? The animals roam around the jungle trying to satisfy their senses. But that is not the human life. the human life is meant for yagya, for tapasya. Tapasya, Prabhupada had many definitions, but generally speaking we can say tapasya means voluntary control of the senses. That means that the soul, with the help of Supersoul, tries to control the senses under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, the acharyas and the shastra. And he tries to focus not on the outward bahirmukh, but on the inward, the Supreme Lord within the heart. He tries to find the Supreme Lord within the heart. What does that mean, within the heart? It means within the heart of the soul, ultimately, because sutri mani gna iva, the soul is resting upon Krishna. So not only is all the material construction resting upon the potency of Krishna, but the soul is also resting upon Krishna. But we are looking outward. But the yogi, he wants to look inward. He wants to find Krishna within his heart, which means within his consciousness. So that is nivritti marg, controlling the senses. So the spiritual master gives Vaidhi Bhakti to control the senses. Regulative principles, 16 rounds minimum, 3 Gayatris, study the Shastra, spread the knowledge of the Shastra, Yarida. Wherever you meet, spread the knowledge. And also asat sangi tyagi. It's very important for the neophyte particularly to stay away from, Lord Chaitanya said that. What is the character of a Vaishnava? Asat sangi tyagi. So the devotee wants to get away from asat. That means not just asat people, demoniac or materialistic people, but he wants to get away from any stimulus that will awaken this desire to enjoy. Aham ishwaropi aham bhogi, that I am the controller and enjoyer through this body. If somebody lives like that, it's more or less animal life. Because the animals, they cannot have a conception of a higher purpose. But the human being is meant to control his senses, discipline them, perform yagya. That is yagya, to control them and discipline them and fix them on the Supreme Lord. So that is the meaning of sacrifice. For example, what is sacrifice? When we think of the word, we think something done for the other. We like a man, he works hard to get money, he sacrifices his time to support his family. The mother sacrifices her time to bring up the children and nurture the children. They're sacrificing their time. But this is a material thing. They're sacrificing their own energy for another. So there's a certain material nobility in that, but it won't give you spiritual liberation. You'll return to the material world. Yes, you may have been pious and you looked after your family and friends and you tried to make everyone happy in this material world, so then you will get the fruit in this material world. But paramo nimaccharanam satam, the Bhagavatam 2nd verse explains that this is Amala Puran, this spotless Puran. It is not talking about how to be a good, pious, material person. It is talking about how to develop love of God. Lord Chaitanya, he would sit with Gadadhar Pandit in Puri and they would hear the Bhagavatam. They would hear what is the Bhagavatam? It is Amala, because there is no room or no elucidation or recommendation of karma and jnana. Karma we can associate with the body, how to get some materially good karma. And jnana, how to speculate or maybe get liberation with the mind. No, the Bhagavatam starts and ends with the activities of the devotees. Everything is related to the Supreme Lord. And step by step, the Supreme Lord is described and his interactions with the devotees. So the devotee lives a life that is disciplined, nivritti-marg, and he focuses his consciousness on the realization of the Supreme Lord, particularly in Kali Yuga, Kalo Nasta Drisham Esha. The Bhagavatam is created for the blinded people in the material world of Kali Yuga. It is created to give them light. And paramo nimacharanam satam. It says it is understandable those that are nimacharanam. In the material world, in pravritti marg, people are performing activities for their own self-aggrandizement, for their own perfection materially. So everyone is taking themselves as the center. So inevitably, individually and collectively, they come into conflict. What the individual wants may be in competition to another individual. People are competing in business, in music, in endless activities, cricket matches, Olympics. It's all about, I want to be number one. I want to be the big. I want to be the supreme at running around a track or lifting barbells. I want to be the biggest lifter. So conflict and anxiety, whether you're an ant or an elephant or a king, material life means anxiety. So like I say, people take intoxication, they get into mental difficulties, physical difficulties, because they're trying to enjoy what is not enjoyable, because they are spiritual, not like the body. The body is a lump of matter. It is no more alive than a motor car. A motor car without a driver has no evidence of mobility. This body without a soul is just a lump of matter. So we are trying to enjoy the inferior material energy with the material mind and body. And we become entangled in the cycle of birth and death. And this can go on for millions of lives. Brahmananda, Brahmite, Kona, Bhagyavanji. It can go on for endless lives. That is Pravritti Marg. So here, Krishna in this section is explaining, recommending, because the Bhagavad Gita, it covers the whole gamut of sacrifices. So that is the meaning of sacrifice. What is the meaning? It says again, I'll read it again. Those performers of these activities who know the meaning of sacrifice. So the meaning of become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the results of sacrifice, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. So that is the goal of nivritti marg. That is the necessity, that is the prayojan. I don't want to remain in the material world, chasing sense enjoyment in the body of a dog or an elephant or an ant or a chipkuli or a gileri. I don't want that. This has to be the understanding of the Vaishnava. I don't want that, or any human being. What I want to do is to advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. So, Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. So this means that bhakti is, instead of trying to satisfy the senses of the body with interaction with the material world, we try to use the senses to satisfy rishikesh. We don't try to impersonally withdraw from the material energy. That may be good for meditation, mohan vrat and so on, and it may help some purification, but ultimately the senses, rishikena, rishikesha, sevanam, are meant to be employed in the service of Krishna. Mama angsa jiva loke, jiva bhuta, sanatana. We are part and parcel of the Supreme. So this is our natural function, to serve the Supreme Lord in devotion, ecstatic devotion. So we have, like Bhakti Vinod says, we have geha. So we should make our house a temple. This is Panchanga Bhakti, Narada Pancharatrika. We should install deity and offer all our foodstuffs to the deity. We should have kirtan for the deity. In the house, we should rise early, become pure. We should practice meditation, yoga, bhuta shuddhi, and offer flowers and fruits regularly to Shalagram, Dwarkashila, Giriraj, Murti in the house. So in this way, instead of using the hearing process to hear mundane things, what is the cricket score, what is the politics, what is all these things, instead of becoming drawn into that, what do? We hear the Bhagavatam. We hear the commentaries of the sadhus, of the acharyas on the Bhagavatam. We hear, and that is today's verse, Shrotriya, that we hear the Vedic message from Shastra, Acharya and bona fide Guru. And then the next one is touch, sense of touch. So then we can make a garland and we offer it to the deity. And then we touch the garland, we touch the body of Shalagram while we're doing puja, so on and so forth. We make friends with devotees, embrace a fellow Vaishnava. We use the sense of touch in relationship to Krishna's service, Rishikesha, Rishikena. And then sight, instead of going to go and see Mount Everest, we go and see Badrinath. We go and see Kedarnath. We see the great devotees, Yamunotri. We take pilgrimage and we go to see the deity in the temple. We want darshan. So we're using the eyes. So this is a sacrifice. This is the meaning of sacrifice. I'm withdrawing the senses from the material world and I'm using them in the service of Krishna. This is the sacrifice. Devotee lives a life of sacrifice. It's mentioned many times. That means he's using his material body, his mind, his material opulence in the service of Krishna. So he drinks foodstuffs, water. He remembers Krishna. The next sense, he offers scents to the Lord. He puts on a garland. He smells the garland offered to the Lord. So he's using his senses. But we should understand the meaning of sacrifice, that these performers, we should understand this within our mind. That when I am smelling the garland, I'm performing sacrifice. When I'm coming to the Gita class, I'm performing sacrifice. When I'm speaking about Krishna, I'm performing sacrifice. That's there in the Bhagavatam. The sages, they addressed Sutta Goswami and they said, look, we've come to Naimisharanya to perform sacrifice, seeing Kali Yuga come, being blessed with many years, O Sutta Goswami. Tell us about the discourse between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadev Goswami. We want to hear. This is sacrifice. Sacrifice doesn't just mean offering grains and ghee into the fire. That is one sacrifice. But we're sacrificing the senses in the fire of bhakti. And then our working senses. Instead of talking, of course we should know a little about politics. For example, at the moment we shouldn't go for a holiday in Israel or Ukraine. But we shouldn't become drawn into the material energy. We should discuss Krishna, working senses. Our arms, like the ladies, they use their arms to make a garland. They're using their intelligence to make the garland very nicely. They are doing so many things. They're using their senses, mind and intelligence as a sacrifice. They're performing sacrifice. So they're using the arm. And then the stomach. We perform sacrifice. We perform sacrifice by hearing about, the senses in we instead of eating material food, which is verily only sin, we eat Krishna prasadam. We have a deity in our house or the temple, and we only offer that which is offered to the Supreme Lord. We only take that. That is a sacrifice. So we should understand it philosophically, because a sacrifice performed in knowledge is more powerful than one that is just performed in a kind of automatic session without real understanding. Knowing the meaning of sacrifice, Krishna emphasizes this. We should know the meaning of sacrifice. I'm doing this as an offering to Krishna. I'm coming to the Bhagavatam class, the Gita class, and this is my sacrifice. And then also, even like Krishna says earlier, that I am sex life that is not against regulated principles. This is the man-made religions. They tend to think God and the devil, and they find some kind of, there is some section of the material world that belongs to the devil. But in Krishna consciousness, no, we say no. We can create children within Vanaprastha ashram and bring them up as a yajna to Krishna. So, confirmed. So, therefore, and then the legs, instead of going, like I say, to a mundane place, we go to Varsana, we go to Radhakund. So we should understand that I'm not going there for sense enjoyment, I'm going there in a mood of sacrifice. So this is what Krishna is hinting at here. The performers who know the meaning of sacrifice, that means the devotee is using his geha, his material acquisitions, his wealth, his house, his friends even, his friends, his devotee friends. He invites them and they have a nice prasadam meal. So this is sacrifice. But it should be done consciously and as an offering to Krishna. For example, we have a giriraj and we want to make an offering, so you can chop up the apple and then do, okay, that's it. But then you can offer it with mantra very nicely. But like we say, the real upachaya is bhakti. The example is that just like a child, if it takes an apple and the mother says, offer it to Giriraj, offer it, and the child goes and puts it at the feet of the deity, then the child may be a toddler, but he doesn't know any mantra, but he's, I'll give it to Krishna. But with the heart, he's giving. So then it becomes accepted by Krishna. even though they may know mantras or this and that. But the main thing is, I'm giving to Krishna. That is the meaning of sacrifice. So the more we're conscious of this, the more potent it is. Because we will get more reciprocation from Krishna when it's done in knowledge. When we act in yajna, in knowledge, with the proper understanding, then we can understand that we can do everything as a yajna. Even when we take rest at night, we think, oh, it's 8 o'clock, let me go to bed now so I can get up early and chant 16 rounds before Mangalarti. So I'll perform yajna. That's also in the Gita, right? Yajnanam japa. That of all yajnas, japa is the most powerful, or the highest. So it should be performed when we follow the order of the spiritual master. This is yajna. We're following the Guru Parampara, we're following the Shastra, we're following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we are performing yajna. So therefore, a devotee, he is always performing yajna. Just like if he's going to the temple, he may be driving down the road, but he's performing yajna, because he's driving to see the deity, right? Even through the big traffic jam. So on and so forth. So I'm going shopping to buy some sabji and apples, whatever, but I'm performing yajna because I'm going to take that and offer it to my shalagram. So if we're doing everything consciously in this way, Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Bhakti Uchite. So the more conscious we are of this, then we are integrating Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Just like before coming to class, I try to sit in the temple under the tree and I hear the kirtan and I see the deities. So I can go there and think, oh, it's nice, I like this kirtan, I like the look of the deities. But the sadhaka should think, I'm performing yajna, I'm performing sadhana, I'm performing this as an offering to Krishna. Just like we, Mam Namaskuru, Krishna says, offer things to me and I will reciprocate. So in this way, the devotee lives a life of Rishikesha, Rishikena, Sevanam Bhakti Uchite. And those activities that were done before, when they're performed with this knowledge, they become yajna. Because we've all, once we reach maturity, we all have to go shopping to buy sabjis. We all have to go to the petrol station to buy petrol. So all the activities of normal life, they become an offering to Krishna for the initiated sadhaka. And so that is offered to the spiritual master. Just like there is that song, right? Shri Rupa Manjari Pada. Om Rupa Manjari, this is Narottamsa. All my vrata, all my tapasya, everything I'm doing, I offer it to you, Rupa Goswami. So he's doing it in this conscious way, this way of understanding. He's not running through, I'm putting on the tilak and the dhoti. But actually I remember one of Prabhupada's godbrothers told me, he said, you know, you should always keep the dress given. He was a sannyasi. He told me you should always keep the dress given by the spiritual master. And that is yajna. Because instead of, you know, wearing, I don't know what the fashion is, we wear the dress of the given by the spiritual master, and that is yajna, because that is nivritti marg, because we're not dressing like a peacock for our own pleasure. We are satisfying the spiritual master by disciplining ourselves according to his directions. So that becomes yajna. This is the meaning of sacrifice. This is the entrance to the spiritual world. And having tasted the results, they approached the supreme eternal atmosphere with this mood of seva. We're always saying it, right? Jivado swayam eva spuryada. So everything is based on seva. So let's just run through these different sacrifices. So this is transcendental knowledge, this chapter. So Krishna is telling us and Arjuna how to perform sacrifice. And it starts with number 25, I think. Yes. Okay. The premise, the work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge, like I'm trying to explain, that we should act in knowledge. This very important part of sadhana bhakti, that we have the right siddhanta, merges entirely into transcendence. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute. That consummation means the offering is absolute, and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Consummation means a final arrival point. Some yogis, so then, because the Bhagavad Gita is very broad, but we know as followers of Mahaprabhu that Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam. But it's very interesting to read how Krishna expands to all forms of yajna in the Bhagavad Gita, so that it is all inclusive for people. But we understand that Mahaprabhu was given the quintessence in the Navavidha Bhakti. But here, some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them. Right? We know that, right? People worship Agni, Indra, Shiva, so on and so forth. But a devotee might do that. But Krishna, what does Krishna say? No, don't worship Indra. Just worship Govardhan Hill. Govardhan Hill is giving us all these flowers, fruits and grains. Of course, Indra wasn't so happy about that, but Krishna is saying that some yogis, he's not recommending it, but they are doing piety, they are elevating themselves by following the Vedic rules. Some offer sacrifice in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. So that's karma and jnana, right? Some yogis, they do karmic activities, yajnas, to get some material benefit. So they get some elevation too. They advance to mode of goodness perhaps. They see the result, they gain faith in the Vedas. They may find association with sadhus who can bring them to bhakti. And some offer in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. So that is a reference to those that use their mind. And they're concentrating, on the spiritual energy, as brahmacārīs. Some, this is today, the unadulterated brahmacārīs sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control. So that's very interesting. Mental control is a fire. And I'm offering the hearing process into that fire. So the mind is the yajna fire, and the sense of hearing is offered into the mind. What is that? Why is that? Because the mind is the center of all the senses. All the senses working or knowledge acquired, they run into the mind, and under the control of intelligence and supersoul, and that is the central core. And others, the regulated, offer the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So that's very interesting what Krishna says. Yeah, Prabhupada expands there, but the senses are fired up. When the householders are procreating, so that becomes the fire. But the objects of the senses, the man object of sense is the woman, and the woman's object of sense is the man. So they offer that attraction into the fire of the senses. And they offer that to the Supreme Lord. They're creating children in the mode of passion, but they are offering it in the fire of the senses. So they're not in the mood of enjoyment, they are offering it as a yajna, with knowledge. And then they get nice children. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the function of all the senses and the left breath and the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. Again, I'm controlling my mind, and then the functions of the senses and the breathing, I'm offering that into my mind. So my mind becomes the fire, and the senses are offered back into the mind under control. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions. So that's geha, manasa deha geha. Say man is a rich man, successful in business. So then in the name of Krishna, he opens an ashram, a dharamshala, or he prints lots of books. That is a yajna. Others by performing severe austerities. That should be careful, because Krishna does say, later on he says, those that perform austerities that torture the body, the elements, material elements of the body, and the super soul within are to be known as demons. Krishna says that later. But severe austerities, well, maybe for some people following Ekadashi is a severe austerity. Actually, Ekadashi can be done in 3 days, do you know? The first day, before Ekadashi property, just eat water and fruit. Then pure Ekadashi vrat, nirjal. And then the third day, the day after Ekadashi, eat just fruit and water. And then, on the next day, you take grain. So that is a quite severe austerity. By practicing yoga of eightfold mysticism, right? We'll hear about that later, Ashtanga yoga, forming this. And they may want to, usually Ashtanga yoga, if they understood properly, according to Patanjali, it is to kaivalya, to merge into the absolute, to merge into the super soul. So often these yogis, they get distracted from that, and they want the powers of the super soul, like to become powerful, influential, to gain items from distant places, anima lagana, so on and so forth. So that's a distraction from kaivalya. Kaivalya means to merge into the existence of the Supreme, but the super soul generally, because without proper knowledge, that's their thing. And then some study the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. So we're studying Bhagavatam, right? That is a yajna. When you get out your Bhagavatam, your Chaitanya Charitamrita, and you should think, I'm going to perform yajna for an hour or two, studying the Shastra. But you do it consciously. Don't do it motivated, I'm going to get knowledge, I'm going to get smart. No, this is the material motivation. I'm doing it as a yajna. I'm doing it in knowledge. I understand the meaning of sacrifice. So I'm reading the Bhagavatam as a yajna to my spiritual master. 29. All these performers, still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint, kumbhaka, break to remain in trance, practice, now this is a little complicated, practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming, and the incoming breath into the outgoing. So that is a yogic process. You're breathing in, but you're also breathing out in a subtle way. You're breathing out, but you're breathing in a subtle way. So by doing this exercise, they balance the airflow, and then it's easy to remain in trance, because the movement of air, pranayama, and the mind are very interlinked. So the more you can slow the breathing process down, the more you can control and steady the mind. So that is one yogic thing. And thus, at last, remain in trance, stopping all breathing. So we just chant Hare Krishna. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. Yes, so all yogis should be a little bit skinny, because brahmacārī and a good yogic life should be controlled senses. And then Krishna sums up. So he gives the full list of all these yogic things that you can find expanded in the Vedas. And then he says, all these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice, you see, these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice. So you're performing it as a sacrifice, not for your own self-embellishment. This is the point. This is the important point. I'm not studying the Vedas so I can know more slokas than anyone in the temple. No, I'm studying the Vedas as a sacrifice. This is the meaning of sacrifice. They know the meaning, become cleansed of sinful reactions by this nivritti mark, control of the senses, the fire of the control mind. And having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, so there is a result, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? Right. So, this is Krishna. He's giving the full range of sacrifice. But what is our big sacrifice? Reading the Bhagavatam, hearing the Bhagavatam, and Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Yes. But you can also do Smaranam and Padasevanam, Arjanam Vandanam. But it should be done in knowledge. This is my practice. This is my offering to Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. And then it's powerful. I'm still not... You see, the thing is, in material life, we're always acting for our own aggrandizement, our own satisfaction. So we may come to spiritual life with the same idea. I'm doing this for me. I'm chanting Hare Krishna for me. But we should develop Seva Bhav. I'm doing this for Guru, for Acharya. Do you understand? With the mood, Rishikesha, Rishikena, Sevanam Bhakti Uchite. So I'm performing all these activities of the working and knowledge and the mind as an offering to Krishna, consciously. That is sacrifice. So, any question? Excuse me?
Just about the language, because you were also a English teacher.
Huh?
The word sacrifice, like any other words which sometimes Prabhupada mentioned, there is no equivalent.
Sorry, say that again. There was a loud cough there. It was part of his sacrifice. What is the word?
Like,
the word sacrifice.
Yeah, like any other words where sometimes Prabhupada mentioned that there is no equivalent to this Sanskrit word in English. So is it a similar to this word also, sacrifice, that it doesn't
No, I think you can use yagya. Of course, yagya, because it's in the Sanskrit language and it's in the context of the Vedas, then it might be more clear. But like I say, sacrifice can be used in material way. Like, you know, so yagya implies in Sanskrit that it is to be offered to the Supreme. But just like in the material world now, Krishna also talks about this. Some people worship the devatas, some people worship the forefathers, some people worship the demons, blood sacrifice, animal sacrifice, humans, you know, the demoniac rakshasas. Just like in the Bhagavatam, they try to sacrifice Jadbara. But those that worship me. So we do everything as an offering to Krishna. But that's an interesting point. And that's why it's good to learn a little Sanskrit and to study the word for word. And then you get a good understanding. Like Prabhupada translates in the earlier chapters here, Buddhi Yoga is in the text, but he translates that as devotional service. But Buddhi Yoga is sadhana bhakti, because you're not inspired by bhava. You're understanding and acting through intelligence and knowledge, like I'm saying now. We're not. The Uttamadhikari has bhava, so he's acting through praying. But the sadhaka has to perform buddhi yoga, dadami buddhi yogam tam yenama. So we want to use the intelligence, which is the controller of the mind, which is the controller of the senses, in a matter of sacrifice. So yes, sacrifice in the modern world, like...
The nearest word to the...
Sorry?
So the sacrifice word can be the nearest to the yagya.
Well, yagya.
Yeah, my question is like the word incarnation. You see, that's not the accurate word, because incarnation means to enter the flesh.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
But still Prabhupada uses it.
Yes, avatar means one who descends. But sometimes that's translated as incarnation. But many avatars, they don't take a physical form of material elements. They come inside, because Krishna is an avatar. He's not an incarnation. But there again, some devotees, some spirit souls, they take a material form when they come on, perform Krishna Leela. But even then, they're not really in the flesh, are they? They're in the vehicle. So yes, so that's why I say, Prabhupada has put the word for word, and it's good to increase our vocabulary and to learn a little grammar, and then we'll see deeper into the meaning. So that's a good point, yes, because in the material world, people say, oh, I'm going to sacrifice my time for the children, like I said, or for the football club, or for the town council, right? I'm going to serve humanity. It's my sacrifice. But that earlier, Krishna says, those that have knowledge see inaction in action. So material action is inaction, because it has temporary results, so it doesn't have, but those that are wise see action in inaction. That means that you're performing non-karmic activities, but it's action. You understand? Because it's a give of an eternal result. There's no loss or diminution. So that's what Krishna meant earlier. But so all the material sacrifices, they are actually inaction. Krishna says those who worship the devatas are ritagyan, because they're doing all this austerity worshipping, but it's a temporary result. Yeah, they may go to higher realms, but they what is it? Marchaloka, Vishanti, they come back. So it's It's like a dream. Material life is a gross dream. It's just like if you dream you're a king at night. It's not action really, it's just inaction. You were never a king. So everything in the material world is inaction. Because, you know, Mona Lisa may be great and the symphonies of Beethoven may be great, but when the material energy collapses, it just didn't exist anymore. It's just like, what is it? Castles made of sand fall into the sea eventually. So children build castles, then the wave of the ocean comes, the wave of time comes, and the castle made of sand is gone. So everything in the material world is inaction. It has no lasting effect. But if we perform yajna as an offering to the Supreme, that has, what does Krishna say? On this endeavor there is no loss or diminution. That becomes in the notebook, Krishna's notebook. Oh, now he's reading the Bhagavatam as a yajna. It goes in the notebook, you see? So, Buddhi Yoga, Sadhana Bhakti should be performed with Siddhanta, consciously, understood as a yajna. Not, oh, I've got to chant 16 rounds, I've got to go to Mangalarti or else they won't give me prasadam, they may kick me out of the temple. That's not yajna. That's self-survival. No, we're all here to perform yajna, right? Like if you go home tonight, if you have a shalagram or even a picture of Krishna, you think, I'm going home and I'm going to offer a glass of water to my shalagram. Then your going home is a yajna, right? So remember this now, right? Perform yajna, all your activities, Rishikesha, Rishikeda, as an offering to Rishikesh. And then you will approach the supreme eternal destination. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you all very much.